When somebody says all or nothing, I say, always something. All or nothing is I couldn't get my hour and 20-minute workout in the way it was structured. Nothing. But always something is, like yesterday, right? Like I got like 30 minutes before I got to head home and jump on a flight, right? Now my training session usually is an hour and a half. There's no way that's going to happen. What I do, I actually went home in my living room, did a 30-minute body weight session.
I want to ask you about the technical side, the X's and O's side of things when it comes to fitness. You know, it's obviously a big necessity right now is getting our society healthier, more fit, more robust, reducing susceptibility to disease and all those good things. But what are some of the biggest, let's start with the mistakes people are making. What are some of the biggest mistakes that people are making when they set out to transform their health from a technical X's and O's standpoint?
Okay, great question. Like, man, this could be a deep dive. So I went, when we talked before, I kind of went and put some things down as like focal points. So this is where I'm stemming from, okay? When people, and obviously health is a lot more than weight loss, but so much of it is related to, I would say health is related to markers of, having a lower body fat and weight loss. So there's 7 or so things that people that are able to take the weight off and keep it off do, right? So it's kind of like that 10,000 foot view, bigger picture, okay? So I want to talk about those as far as being these main markers, because consistency is such a huge factor. Like I always talk about, whatever you're going to do, majority of it, you have to continue doing it. So that's a behavior thing, right? It's who you become. It's an identity. It's like you do it no matter what. One of the first things is cognitive restraint, right? Every person that, and let's fall back just one quick second to say that over the course of 3 years, people that lose weight, 95% of them put it back on, and 1 to 2/3 put on extra weight in that time, which is, somewhat, I would say, is definitely sad and it's challenging. It's kind of like we're here to try to change that and get that, snowball rolling in a positive direction. So we kind of look at, okay, what are the 5% of people, like what do they do, right, that make them successful and sustainably are able to do this? And you could probably, you could take this into some of the stuff I'll talk about. You can take it into other areas of lifestyle, because they're like big picture behavior things, right? Cognitive restraint means that you are aware, okay, and that you restrain from, for instance, and the restraint can be in a form of, I don't eat after 8. Now, obviously, that's not some scientific thing, but it creates a constraint where it may help you basically eat less. Cognitive restraint might be smaller plates. It may be, any of the kind of methods, intermittent fasting, without going into what works and doesn't work and the science behind it, but that people are aware, I'm going to have to restrain, right, from doing something. Hey, like this is if I do this, it's not going to lead me to my long-term goals. So if you've ever seen kind of like the 4 boxes of when it comes to behaviors, there's unconscious incompetence, right? So that means you don't know what you don't know, right? And you're doing something. So stage 2 is conscious incompetence. You start becoming aware. Shawn tells me like, hey, Luka, I noticed that you're always interrupting me while I'm talking. Damn, I didn't know I do that, right? And then you kind of catch yourself. That's conscious incompetence. So conscious incompetence is usually where somebody becomes aware of, I may be eating too much. Like I go out and have some drinks and afterwards I'm always snacking or eating fast food. Part 3 is conscious competence. That's where you start improving your behavior, but it's hard. Change is very, very hard. So you maybe have to have reminders, notes, meal delivery plan. Like you buy all smaller plates for your home. You create the smoothie the night before so it's ready to have it because it's lower calorie than what you usually eat. And then 4th stage is like where we all want to get to, which is unconscious competence, meaning like I do the thing that's taking me towards the person I want to be, and it's just a habit, right? Like we just do it. You don't have to think about it, right? But it's good to, and they're geeky words, but it's good to kind of understand those stages, because in life you find yourself, realizing something. You read a book, somebody's listening to your podcast, and they go like, "Damn, I didn't know that," right? So they go from unconscious incompetence to like conscious competence. See that the hard words making me mix them up the whole time, but it's like you go from not knowing to just knowing, still not doing it, but knowing it. And that's a huge key. So cognitive restraint basically means that just like you have to restrain from doing certain things that you've been doing right now when it comes to, and like I'm mostly talking about food right now. Number two is there's got to be some form of tracking. There has to be. Now, you know, even if I look at our clients at Vigor Ground, I'd say that out of 10 people, about 3 are comfortable and do well with, for instance, tracking calories. About 7 out of 10, that's not going to work for them, right? But that's not the only form of tracking. Like you can track so many different things, right? You can check the habit boxes. Did I eat my meal delivery, for lunch? And it, it's automatic. It's got 450 calories. It's got this much protein.
Did I eat my 5 servings of non-starchy vegetables?
Exactly, right? Yeah. It's like you can track that. And you can track this. You can just start with one thing. Hey, did I get enough protein in today? Maybe that's it, right?
Water intake.
Yeah. Right? There's got to be things that you can check and track. Did you do it or did you not do it? Which I'm a bigger fan of the behavior part of it, right? Not the outcome part of it, but the behavior part of it. But there's got to be some form of way that we end up seeing, are we, it's like the buoy in the water. Mm-hmm. I always say, we did these warrior challenges and we did like these swimming laps. But one of my mentors said, think of these buoys like your life. You have this vision of how life should be, and the buoy is the marker that you're on the right track, right? So you got to have that, because if you don't, you're just throwing stuff against the walls. Like, is it going to stick? Yeah. So tracking in anything, but just don't think of tracking as being this very, very stressful thing, because a lot of times if I tell you, all right, Shawn, listen, you track your calories, your macros, I've already lost a lot of people. Like, man, I'm just trying to eat better, right? Yeah. So you can break that down in so many different ways and just go like, are these buoys on the path to where I want to be and who I want to be?
And right? Things that are more rational and manageable too, because most people, as soon as you said that, I'm like, a lot of folks are going to think about weight, because they're just going to be tracking that metric. Did you see any of the new Will Smith? He's doing this, series where he's getting in the best shape of his life is supposed to be
I saw that, yeah.
The outcome. Did you see the first episode?
No.
So the first episode, spoiler alert, but I'm just giving you a tiny bit of it. But in the first episode, he's demonstrating, he's showing he's got, he's in the worst shape that he's ever been. He's demonstrating that. And he gets to work, so he's getting after it, lifting, doing all the things, improving his nutrition. He gets on the scale and then after a week he gets on, gains a pound. He gained a pound. So he's supposed to lose a pound a week. Not only did he not do that, he gained a pound. But I can literally see his physical body is improved. He's physically healthier. If they were measuring his waist, I could tell that he's lost some off his waist just looking at his before and after picture. But because it's the scale, you could see this depression hit in the room. You could see this like fog come over everybody's, his trainers in the room. It's like, and they try to explain it away. But we're using this one metric.
One thing, yes.
That for many people, as you mentioned, this is what I want to say is it creates stress around weight. And it's something that is, it's something we can manage, not to say we can't. But so many people put their faith into that and not actually improving their metabolic health, reducing the size of their, their waist management, body fat, all that stuff.
I'm so happy you brought this up because, it's something I wanted to talk about later on, but it's like, the making progress part of it. So I believe that anytime you go around trying to change your body, it should be 3 things. Body composition, people want to look better. I mean, period, right? That's a lot of times what drives the start sometimes, right? But it should be that, health. If you look better without being healthier, I think that's a fail, right? Mm. And then number 3 is performance. Now, what that performance is depends on the person. Performance for somebody might be, I want to pick my grandkid up off the floor. We get a lot of folks that are, I want to hit my first chin up. I want to deadlift double my body weight. Be empowered. Like, I would say our gym is probably about 60 to 65% women, and love lifting but not just because of the body transformation, but the confidence that they gain. Mm-hmm. And the empowerment is just like crazy to see. I absolutely love it. So if you just go, I'm going to basically connect my value of or worth or progress to this number on a scale, like you're shooting yourself short. You know what I mean? Because you could have dropped body fat in inches, I would say dropped body fat, put on some muscle, especially hyper responders do that when you start off pretty damn good and you're looking different. You look at the pictures, they're different, right? But you're going like, oh man, I failed. So it's a key that when you start, you determine what progress is going to look like. And I love this question, right? Ask all clients this question. If today I could like wave this magic wand, so while you sleep, I do the Gandalf, you know what I'm saying? Like, and tomorrow, like you wake up and life is perfect. Like in a sense, exactly the way that you want it to be. But tell me what problems are gone. How do you feel? What's different, right? Because when people start explaining that, usually it won't be like, oh, well, I look on the scale and I weigh XYZ. They'll say, man, I look in the mirror and like, I love what I see and I have a confidence. I have great energy. I get up in the morning and like, my back doesn't hurt. It doesn't take me 10 minutes to just put my socks on, right? So now you start seeing a picture of what they want their life to be like. Now you can reverse engineer and say, okay, what are some like markers of progress that will take you there, right? And I don't think many people determine that. They go like, I want to lose 20 pounds. Why do you want to do that, right? Why is that important? So I think it's very, very important to figure out like other markers, blood work, right? When you go do blood work and it's like, wow, like, hey, your inflammation's down, iron's better, vitamin D deficiency's got, is better, it's good now. I mean, there's so many different markers. Your testosterone levels are much better, free range testosterone. Damn, like you're healthier, right? So we said body composition, health, performance. The performance side of it is great because at least when it comes to strength, did the weight go up? Did you do an extra rep? I love doing stuff like speed and power stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about that later too, with anybody, not just with athletes. But you go to a mom that's like, hey, like your 10-yard acceleration just dropped by 0.2. I'm telling you right now, everybody gets excited. I don't care, man, you just produce more power in that. Like your VBT score, we have this velocity-based training stuff that we do, right? You can see it improve. People love improvement. Right? It's part of the intrinsic motivator of human beings. Like competence. If I become more competent, I become more fulfilled. And so what you brought up is very important because, an example, Will Smith, he did all this work. And then, it seems that a lot of, I don't have enough context, but a lot of the, I would say, attachment to the outcome was what was going to like make him successful or excited, right? Oh, I'm successful now. But self-esteem is built this way. If I do something I said I was going to do, I'm going to put a credit in my self-esteem bank account, right? So you're like, tomorrow morning I'm going to get up and do 10 minutes of mobility because my hips and my back are hurting. When you do that, right, you do the thing that you said you're going to do. Check. Credit in the self-esteem bank account, right? Then you go, I'm going to get my workout in today. Man, I only have so much time, so I'm going to do a 25-minute workout. Check. And the thing is, the more things that you do that you said, you build these credits in a self-esteem bank account, right? Now, when you don't, you put a debit in there. And what's happening in the world a lot today is that because people are frustrated with where they are, they go, I'm going to jump into this, do 7 workouts a week. I'm going to go on this diet right here. And, these super aggressive things that are very hard to put into place all at one time. And so when that happens, debits, and you go bankrupt in self-esteem, right? And when you go bankrupt in self-esteem, then it's difficult to believe yourself that you're going to do something. And the way to solve that, rather than me just going like, that's what happens, but like the way to solve it is to go, okay, look, take smaller chunks off the pie, right? Instead of saying you're going to train 7 days this week, how about, tomorrow you're going to meet your friend and do, a 15-minute workout. Does that seem more doable? And it does, right? It's just not as big of a task. But once you complete it, you put that credit in there. And you have to, you have to ask yourself right now, it's like, man, are you bankrupt in self-esteem? And if you are, it's okay. Because here's how you build it up, right? And there's the power of environments. We'll probably dig into that a little bit later, but, put yourself in environments that make it easier for you to do the things. Because now we're starting to build that self-esteem back up. I
love that.
And the thing about that is that, you know, these are all like, first of all, these are all proven things that we've through behavior science like found that work, right? So, man, let's find ways. Don't fight it. Like, let's find ways to implement this. Now, it is different for everybody because the capacity of people is different. Some people can take on a little bit more. Some people can take on a little bit less. But I would say that it's always better to like do less, but do it consistently, than do more and go what I call the rest pause mentality, right? Oh, I'm going to start training when I have a little bit more time, right? I'm going to improve my nutrition, but not during the holidays, right? Not during November through December, right? Because that would kind of mean that life has a start and stop button, but it doesn't. It never does, right? There's always things going on. So we got to find ways to put behaviors in our life that lead us to become the person that we want to become, right?
I love it. You know, so you just brought up this, there's a term of learned helplessness. Yes. When those debits get us to the place where we're bankrupt. And so to evolve from learned helplessness is to start to add strategically some credits back. And it just by implementing simple, small things starts to build up that neurological association that I can do a thing. That's powerful, man. So we've got number 1, cognitive restraint. Number 2, tracking. Number 3.
So yeah, we veered off a little bit, but it's going to play into exercise. And into exercise. So strength training and just exercise in general has proven to be a huge marker. So 70% of the people that kept that 5% off all had a regular exercise regime. So that in itself tells you a lot. We know that, you know, maintaining and or building lean body mass is one of the best things for metabolism, right? I sit here, if I have more lean body mass, I'm burning more calories. But it's also, you know, is connected to so many health markers. And not to mention, people that have more muscle mass are able to, they have a better body fat set point, meaning, so one of the issues with weight loss is there's something called a body fat set point, which has now been, you know, used to be a theory and now has been more confirmed. So it just means that if you've stayed at a certain weight for a long period of time, your body's going to have a tougher time moving from that weight, right? Because that's what's safe. That's homeostasis. So if you go up or down too much, but especially down, it's going to go like, whoa, survival, you know, like this is not good. And then the hormone leptin is almost like a thermostat, right? It's a thermostat in the sense of if you drop, it's going to basically reduce the temperature so that we kind of come back, right? If we go up, so it's going to regulate it because it wants you to stay in that homeostasis. Exercise and strength training has been proven to be able to adjust that, or should I say like help with that. So if you drop weight and you strength train, your body will have an easier time staying at that lower weight, right? And there's been a lot of studies done around that. Enough to confirm, like, first of all, like this is something you have to do, right? Now, what does strength training look like? I mean, it's obviously depends how much do you want to improve your performance and put on muscle, but any person that wants to be healthier, lose weight, be fitter long-term should be doing some form of exercise and strength training. Like that's been proven across the board. And a lot of times people say, okay, Luka, what if you had a template, you know, and obviously everything's different for everybody, but if you had a template, I had a great conversation with Dr. Andy Galpin about this, but what would it be? I said, well, one, you should strength train 2 to 3 days a week, right? So somewhere in that range. You should do something fast 1 day a week, regardless of your age, what your goals are. And I'm going to touch on that one because I think that's one that's missed out a lot on, right? And it's, first of all, the first thing that you lose as you age is not strength, it's power. It's not cardio, it's power. And people that, you know, first of all, things like agility, quickness, reactivity, when folks fall and break their hips, which is a huge number, like 1 out of 3 people over the age of 50, that's power, right? That's speed, that's reactivity. And it's almost like there's this fear of it, right? Oh, as I get older, I shouldn't be doing that. But it's actually like, no, you should. Now, it might look different for, you know, if I'm doing box jumps and full-blown sprints and we have somebody that's 55, maybe even 60, they may not be doing the same thing. But you know what? They could be throwing a medicine ball explosively for them. They could be pushing a sled fast. They could be we'll do, card throws. Like I'll throw cards, and obviously they get all wonky. They're going to try to catch them. Tennis ball drills, speed ladder drills. For them, that's going to be fast. And they can still improve that speed, and they can still, I would say, work on that so that they don't lose it. Like you don't use it, you lose it, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, great examples like my dad has Parkinson's, the onset of it. He goes and he boxes, right? So he does these speed ladder drills. And, the doctor was like, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever you're doing, man, it's like it's keeping it at bay. And so that, like, speed is such an important factor of it. So once a week at least, you should be doing something fast. Once a week, you should get your heart rate up high for whatever that is for you. So think hard conditioning, right? I like to do that heart rate monitoring. So do something, fast, explosive for whatever that person is, get the heart rate high, let it drop back down. I know this is basics, but this is definitely a template of it. Once a week, do something for a longer duration of time on cardio, but not as high of intensity. And I would say probably more like once to twice a week on that front. And always making sure that you work on quality movement. And even in the last show, we kind of dove pretty deep into that as far as movement hygiene, mobility. I mean, that's extremely important because my philosophy is always move well, move more, move strong, move fast, right? But it starts with move well. If you don't move well and then you add more volume, you add more load on top of that, you add speed, you're just gonna speed up dysfunction, right? So if have a horrible posture and I don't first, improve my mobility and move well, guess what's gonna happen? Right? I'm gonna load that and something's gonna go off. My neck, my shoulder, my low back, something's gonna break down. So when it comes to exercise, I really, really like that template because if you strength train 2 to 3 days a week, you do a little longer distance, or should I say longer duration cardio, which can be a lot of different things, about 2 days a week. You do speed training once a week, and you do 1, maybe 2 sessions with higher intensity heart rates. That's a pretty damn good model right there, right? And the reason I say this to this many times is because somebody that's just starting off, hey, 2 strength sessions, and 1 speed session and 1 cardio session, great. And you can do it in the same day. For example, I could do speed training and then afterwards do high intensity intervals, right? Those couple together pretty well. I could do a strength session and then afterwards do some longer duration, right? There's ways to piece it together. It doesn't have to be somebody's going like, hold on, so I got to train 8 days a week. Like, no. Like, but I'm saying that type of stimulus, right? That type of stimulus. We live in an age where you need to, we only have so much time. So if you have an hour, I could do, a quality warm up for 10 minutes, do strength training for 30, 40 minutes, and finish off with some type of, high intensity conditioning for 15, and that's an hour and 5 minutes. But I've now knocked out a couple of those variables inside of that training session. So I think it's important to, just look at, okay, what are the things that help us be more resilient, stronger, and longevity, right? We know cardio used to be a thing that we did to lose weight, and we know that's not the most effective thing whatsoever, but it is extremely important when it comes to health, extremely. And I'm glad that, like, one of my really close friends, Joel Jameson, has done so much research on it. He put HRV on Apple's one of the first guys that did that. Like, the correlation of like quality cardio and heart rate variability is, I think that you end up, there's certain markers that show you live 10% longer if you have, quality cardio and you have good HRV. That's like 8 years, 7 to 8 years. Could I sell you on that? Hey, listen, like, would you like to live 10% longer? Yeah. Okay, great. Make sure you do your cardio. And there's, like I said, there's different ways to do it. I think that's a pretty good template to do that.
So if you put this in the context of how many hours we have in a week, for example, being 168 hours, 3 well-constructed hours, you could have a significant level of health. Then we get up to maybe 5 hours and you're like crushing it. You're in the top like 5% of the United States population. If you're doing it with some intentionality, of course, because we can, and I know this is I think that this is a lot more wiggle room in this if I say junk exercise? Because just still moving, doing something,
Agreed.
you're probably going to turn out better than folks who are just couch surfing.
Actually, this leads to like a really, really cool, I was just going over some PN studies. So over the course of a year, and this, I think they had 1 million data points on this. So it only took 50% compliance of exercise and nutrition to, over the course of a year, average around 11 to 12 pounds of weight loss. So 40 to 50%, right? So think about that. That means that like you could do more than half wrong over the course of a year and still have damn good results, right? And then as soon as you go into that 50 plus to 70 plus range, it's actually pretty equivalent. Now, I say this because that's like a very, very, I would say, good data point to go, hey, like you don't have to be 100%. You don't have to be 90, 80, 70, 50 to 40 to 50 will already get you pretty good. I'll call them pretty good, right? If you want to go to very good, you got to be in the like 70% range over the course of a year, which still means you can do 30% wrong, right? And if we look at that in the context of a actual week. So let's say you're like, I'm going to strength train 4 days a week based on the template we talked about, right? I'm going to go to the gym 4 days a week and work on this thing. But the reality ends up being that like you end up going twice a week, right? You say that you're going to eat more whole unprocessed foods, right? You eat 4 meals a day. It used to be a lot of fast food, but now only about 2 of them per day are whole unprocessed. You still eat 2 fast food meals. Statistically, you're going to lose over 10 pounds that year. Feel better, be stronger, be more confident, have better habits, right? That's pretty damn great, right? And I want to throw that out there because I feel that, you know, in our minds, that pause button mentality I talked about earlier is very like, oh, I didn't do it just right. I'll start again when there's a better gap in my life, right? Like, I only did 60%. What a failure I am, right? And no, like you did 60% more than you were doing. Like you have to constantly shine a light on those wins. Like that's such a huge factor. It's such a huge factor that, you know, this is, I've ingrained this in my head so much with clients that like, I'll find good stuff all the time. Man, great job. Like your spine is in a better position when you deadlift. Do you know that you just went up 5 pounds? That was moving faster than last week. Yeah, but it's the same weight, Luka. We didn't go up, but it's moving faster, and the form was better, right? Shine light, positive, shine light. So what's happening is like, I'm ingraining wins, so that they're going like, okay, cool. Wow, I'm better. Yeah. So that's building that self-esteem we talked about, right? But it's such a, you know, this happens so much where a person goes on a thing, you know, and point number 4 is going to lead into this, by the way. They go into a program, a diet or something, and it doesn't go exactly as planned, which nothing in life does, right? And then as soon as it doesn't, the thought process is I failed. So I'm going to either start another thing or I'm going to start later because I'm just, you know, and it's kind of almost like reinforcing the like, I knew I'm not good enough. Like I just can't do this. But that's not true, right? So if we start, number 1, with something that's right for you, you're going to be more successful. And number 2, look at the things that you're doing well and don't just keep like ramping up and putting the focus on the things that, you know, you didn't do right. And that leads me to number 4. So the people that were successful were on some type of structured program. Now, when I say program, I mean exercise. They had some guidance on nutrition, lifestyle, right? It wasn't just on a whim. So the majority of those people were, and usually that involved some type of support and community, which is actually another point that comes later on. But with, you know, when you have, I call them like boundaries, like on a basketball court, right? People do well with boundaries, but not too much restriction, okay? Because too much restriction means like you're on a tightrope. Like, oh, you messed up. You messed it up. You messed up this program. You messed up your diet. You fell. Like you're done, right? Yeah. Boundaries is like on a basketball court, I can dribble left and right, forward, backward, but there isn't out of bounds though. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that when you have structured programs that are created in a way where you have boundaries and not tightropes, and you get taught and educated on like how to make choice, have autonomy. Oh, I didn't have access to this, you know, but you told me that if I didn't have that, like I could do these 3 different things. So I just did RDLs with my dumbbells instead of a trap bar deadlift. hey, great job, right? People need autonomy in their lives, right? They need to have, because autonomy builds confidence, and not like always looking to somebody for an answer. So structured programs, they help people give, I would say, those boundaries and guidance and like a path. And because they're usually part of, and like I said, whether it's you come to my gym, there's a whole group of people that are supporting you, the coaches, other members, they're all on the same journey in some way or another. Everybody's positive. They're bringing you up like, hey girl, like I had the same problem, like, and here's what I did. Man, like they might listen to that member more than they listen to me. Yeah, Luka said that, but I hear you though. Like, right. So, but that was a huge factor, right? Which structured programs part. Now it could be online, right? You can find, I would say, groups of people that are just like you, on a mission just like you. And what we do really well, right, psychologically, is we adhere to standards of the tribe, right? So this is such a key, and it loops back to the environment I was talking about, that if you get into an environment where, like, this is the type of people we are, this is the type of things that we do, you're going to want to do that. Now that can be good or bad. All my friends go out for drinks 4 days a week. Then they go eat some fast food. I'm going to do that because otherwise I'll be left out of the tribe, right? But if I go to the gym and it's like, well, yeah, we go and meet for healthy brunch twice a week. I exercise 4 or 5 days a week at this gym. And we're the type of people that, fill in the blank, right, are examples for our kids because, we live a fit lifestyle. We read, we prepare our lunches, we do, right? I mean, I can go down the list of habits. You start adhering to those standards. And so when I say structured programs, it means you're following some type of program, but you're also a part of something. And that's also the next point, is social support, right? Social support is such a key factor in that because, like I said, and social support can be also people that are challenging you, right? First of all, it means, yes, they're uplifting you, they're supporting you, they're there for you, they hear you, they understand you, but they also challenge you, right? They challenge you when you are not being the person that you said you wanted to be, right? And to me, that's love, right? It's equivalent to love. People sometimes take it like, yeah, that person's all up in my, yeah, like, but what are they challenging you on? They're challenging you to be a better self, not to be a lesser, right? And so social support groups come in many different formats. Now, personally, I always lead to this. I'm a brick and mortar guy. I mean, I do stuff online, but I own gyms, and like I believe in, like, skin to skin, face to face. I think it's such a powerful thing, which is also what's been really challenging in the last couple of years, right? Because that's been restricted. There's been a lot of kind of disconnect there. And when you see people coming back together, like there's just even with our clients, the stuff that they'll say will be like, oh, it's just like this load coming off. I'm around my people. It's just that energy helps them come in. Like they'll be like, I'm coming in because of that, right? That's a thing that gets people to be consistent. Yeah. Those support groups, those environments. And so that's pretty damn critical, right? Now, the thing is, I don't think that there's such a thing as too much, because maybe you have an online group that helps you with, for instance, nutrition, lifestyle habits, and then you have a gym you go to, and that's your people, and you train hard there, and and you also have a community outside that you go do things. Then you have a book club with people, right? Like my question is just always, are these environments and the people, are they supporting like the person that you want to become, right? And there's there's a really big key in success, and one is managing stress. And so we've heard of like good stress is called eustress. Good stress is stress that once you've had it, you're going to grow from it. Bad stress is usually ongoing. It's chronic. Eustress is usually short, right? I did a hard workout for an hour, right? It was stressful, but then I have release of endorphins and dopamine and like all these feel-good chemicals, and my muscles are going to rebuild and I'm going to get better. Chronic stress is stuff like it's nonstop, high inflammation. I'm not sleeping, so I'm tired. My thoughts are always about focusing on the negative, right? These are all things that, my nutrition is putting my body in an environment that is just not conducive to energy and health and feeling good. Yeah. That's bad stress. So I would actually look at, one of the things that, and I know I'm going to connect this to the social support system, because who am I around? Is that person constantly stressing me out, right? Is this environment of people toxic to me, right? I go home, and even if I'm not around them anymore, now all of a sudden I'm still thinking about that. Well, that's bad stress. Make a chart, right? Good stress, bad stress. And in your life, think about the things that are challenging you, stress that makes you better, and then stress that doesn't make you better. And then you can legit probably look at that list and go, okay, what can I start changing? Some things maybe, if you work somewhere, maybe you can't just quit tomorrow, right? But you can go somewhere else instead of the cafeteria, right? You can go for a walk and listen to, Model Health Show podcast, right?
Let's go.
And be in a better environment. So you can look at that and go, I can affect this good stress, bad stress here, right? Because there's something called allostatic load, geeky word. But it means it's all the physical, emotional, mental, even spiritual stress that gets put on you. And we look at that with for instance, with members, because if somebody comes in and have a 14-hour day job, they're a CEO, they're running stuff, they got kids, their stress from other areas is really high. Would it be smart for me to go, all right, you're going to train extremely hard 5 days a week? No, because their allostatic load is so high that they're not going to be able to recover from that, right? But what we don't think about is, our environments outside of that training space. So what we're thinking about is like, oh, I go and train hard, and then maybe, people don't even think about sleep enough, right? Do you sleep well? But okay, who are you surrounding yourself? Because if 13 hours of your day, you're around folks that legitimately make you stressed out, you're in that fight or flight mode, you're constantly on, that's not going to be good for your health, right? So social support systems plug into all of that.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that container that you put it into, because just because you have a positive, supportive relationship, that doesn't mean it's not going to come with stress, but it's going to be a healthier stress where people are challenging you, again, to be the best version of yourself, to be the person that you broadcast that you want to be, to hold you accountable, things like that. But also a lot of nurturing, fun, support, laughter, creativity, innovation, all these other things, qualities are there, versus the chronically stressful type of relationship that I know all of us have likely experienced. Many of us might be participating right now. You're in your intramurals with it right now, and you're just like, maybe this is your call to action to evolve beyond that.
And what's a thing that I always try to bring up? The bigger the challenge, the higher the support has to be, right? And I think sometimes there's kind of like a disconnect between that. So I'm not saying you can't take big challenges on in life. Life has seasons. I'm going to start a new business. Well, that's going to take a lot more from you, right? I'm getting ready for a physical competition. In 12 weeks, I'm going to step on stage, or it's maybe this, it's a sport. Like, hey, we're getting ready to go to the finals here in the next 4 months are going to be crazy, right? There's seasons in life. But the more you take on as a challenge, the higher your support has to be. And what I mean by that disconnect is, I'll give you an example. Somebody goes online, buys a 12-week program. Like, this program's going to get me shredded. It's going to get me this, that, the other. Boom, you get a PDF and go. But the support is, non-existent, very likely, right? So if you do something like that, being around people that support you, having a partner and an accountability group that trains with you, having a coach, making sure your environments are the right way so that they support this change. Like I said, getting rid of toxic people and negativity, that's going to help you succeed, even though the challenge is higher, right? So that's the kicker, right? Like, you have to kind of find that balance of, maybe I don't have as much support right now. Let me make my challenge, a little bit lower. I'm still going to succeed. I'm still going to, build that self-esteem, but it's going to be, I would say, aligned with the size of the challenge. And that leads to, and I forgot about this one, but ability to focus on the long term, right?
This number
six right here. And not letting short-term feelings and desires dictate your behaviors. So that's a huge, basically, in the surveys, that was a big thing, that all these folks that like basically were able to keep that weight off and sustainably change, the 5%, said that was a thing. And that connects to like the values part. And I know this can get like foo-foo sometimes, right? But we talked a little about earlier about, you know, having gravity to attach to your goals. And, you know, when you start something challenging, and let's be like very, very clear, I don't think anybody's ever said, yeah, me transforming my body was like one of the easiest things I've ever done in my life, right? It's a challenging thing. So
it's the worst.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
stupid fitness.
Which did you know that like the lifetime, you know what the average lifetime attempts of weight loss are?
Please share.
So in general it's 5.7, and then for women it's 7. That means that they've attempted to and actually succeeded in losing a good chunk of weight and then putting it back on. So, you know, and that the reason I bring that up is, you know, talking about how challenging it is. The 5.7 and 7 is like, in many a times, majority of the times, the attempt was in something that was pretty aggressive and, you know, a drastic cut in calories, an aggressive program. There was some results, but it was not sustainable, right? And so to lead into number 6, as far as that you are thinking about not like in 2 or 3 months, you're thinking about who am I going to be in a year and ongoing? Who do I want to become, right? That question, and aligning it with, like I said, your values, because it's such a deep, you know, I call it an anchor, right? The goals are attached to an anchor. So if we would always, you know, we still do ask this question. I ask myself this question a lot of times. If you say something like, oh, I want to make more money, right? Or I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to lose 20 pounds? I'm just curious, right? Well, I'll fit better in my jeans and I feel better when I fit in my jeans. Okay, why does that matter? Why does it matter that you, well, when I fit in my jeans and I feel better and I look better, I feel more confident, right? Okay, why is that important? You feeling more confident? Because when I'm more confident, I feel like I have control of my destiny. Okay, so what you want is more control in your life so that you can, you know, you can create your destiny, right? It started with losing 20 pounds, but the deep anchor was that like, man, like I don't feel like I have control in my life, right? So if you attach that to like the things that you're doing when times get really hard, when you get what I call the messy middle, right? Think about any transformation. You start, you're excited, motivation, like, yeah, everybody's like, you're going to do this. Mm-hmm. And then the messy middle happens, right? Like you're in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, stuff gets hard, you know, kids got more stuff. You got to run around and take into all their things. Like, whew, okay. If you're only looking at that surface goal of 20 pounds, it's not deep and meaningful enough. The anchor isn't strong enough. And so people that like are connected to that long-term goal and go like, who do I want to become? And they attach things to values, they're going to be much more likely to succeed. And a mentor of mine back in the day said, hey, look, there's 3 different things that commitment, that I believe are kind of the laws of commitment, right? Number 1, do what is required, right? And what's required is, you know, we talked a little bit about a template for training. If you go through that template for the next year, I guarantee you're going to be a fit person that's pretty damn strong, and you've sustainably, you know, changed your body. Okay, so do what's required. If you tell me, Shawn, like, listen, man, I want to go to powerlifting competition. But I'm going to train once a week. Listen,
good luck.
Yeah. In a taken voice, good luck. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not going to fly, because there's a higher requirement to that, right? Yeah. Hey, listen, I only want to work 4 hours. I'm going to start a gym and I want to work 4 hours a day, 4 days a week for the next 2 years. Not going to happen. So the requirement is higher, right? So commitment is, you got to do what's required, and there's requirements for success in certain areas. We're actually going over the requirements of the 5% that change their body and keep it that way. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is, you know, do what you said you're going to do, and preferably when you said you're going to do it. That goes back to not even just me telling you that, but me telling myself that. It's that self-esteem that we talked about, right? Stacking those credits, right, of self-esteem. Number 3, this is the biggest one though. Do it despite of feelings, emotions, moods, and thoughts, right? Because how many times do we have this thing where it's like, oh, man, like, I'm tired. Man, I don't want to go on date night. right? But what type of person?
Just had it last night.
I didn't know that, by the way. But it's that's the truth, right? Like but I'm committed.
Yeah.
I'm committed to building this relationship. So I'm still gonna do it, right? In what tends to happen in life is that we let our feelings dictate our actions. Oh man, I'm tired right now. You know what? I'm gonna just watch Netflix. I'm not gonna go to the gym. So we have basically a feeling followed by an action, and then that creates your identity, right? Because if I'm tired and then I don't take action, my identity is gonna be a person that just sits around and watches Netflix instead of exercises. But if we flip this pyramid around and go, what identity do we want, right? To me, that's like, who do you want to become, okay? Well, then, what does that person do, right? What does a person that's fit do? Well, every day they're going to be active and they're going to exercise. Okay, so I'm going to take that action. And that action is then going to create a feeling. And usually that's the feeling we want, right? The feeling of accomplishment, the feeling of confidence, of self-esteem. So I'm always, in my mind, I'm always thinking about, who do I want to become? Who do I want to become? And it's just such a critical thing, because doing that is going to lead you to the behaviors. I would say, are your behaviors matching your goals, right? Are your behaviors matching your goals? And so that's a big, I would say, number 6.
You know what's crazy is, first of all, when we take an action towards our goal, something that is beneficial for us, even when we, quote, don't feel like it, is changing. Our neurobiology is shifting. It's creating a new resilience. Like, it's training your brain. It's literally getting trained to, this is who I am. Despite this circumstance, I still fill in the blank, right? So despite feelings, despite, a temporary, because usually feelings are temporary. They're very fleeting. Despite this thing, I still do this, action. And it creates a neurological association. It builds more resilience to do a tough thing. And I think a lot more people this past 18 months, as of this recording, have experienced that more, because our routines were changed. And so I'm somebody, I love it. I love to train. I love, it's just something I'm just connected to, because of the times when I might not have wanted to, and building that muscle is just a part of my, like you said, it's a conscious competence. Mm-hmm. No, it's a unconscious competence.
Unconscious competence, yeah.
And so, but I've seen times, which was very unlike me, where I'm just like, maybe, I'll do it tomorrow, and I don't even talk like that. And so, in a couple of times that was the case, but more often than not, I've done the thing, and I just want to throw this out there. I found other kind of treats, because right now I'm forcing myself to do a thing that, I might not, quote, feel like doing in the moment, but like, let me take this as an opportunity. Like, I've changed the meaning of it, right? So now, versus me just doing my thing, my fitness, just to take care of my body. Now I'm training to be a leader right now. I'm training to be, a messenger and a force of love or empowerment or whatever it is. And I'm just like, no, this is my duty. This is my opportunity to get better, to be more prepared, to whatever it is. So I started changing the meaning in those moments to now where I'm back and just like, it's non-negotiable again.
See, that's such a powerful anchor, because, I think that people are what they do when nobody's watching, right? And to me, I've always been like, okay, cool. Like, if there's a camera 24/7 on me, I don't know it's there though, right? And I mean, you have kids. Like, I don't have kids yet, but there's people in my life that like I always want to make proud, and it's like, when you show up for even like a podcast or an IG on, you can orchestrate things, right? But when nobody's watching, what you do, like, that is who you are, and if you think about, like, look, somebody's going to film your life, and then once you pass away, those recordings that you didn't know were, that you were being recorded, get given to your kids. And would they watch it and go like, man, that's my dad. I'm so proud. You know what I mean? Like, look at what he was doing when nobody was watching, right? And like, that, to me, that's powerful. Like, that's an anchor. If I live my life like that and I catch myself, conscious competence, right? Man, like, that's going to start shifting the way that I behave. And a big, like the whole identity thing, to me, James Clear kind of made it one of the better analogies, which is casting votes for who you are, and I'll take a sport that, I don't know, I was going to say ping pong, but I'm pretty damn good at ping pong. So I'll say like volleyball or something, right? Like if I play volleyball next week and you ask me, hey, Luka, are you a volleyball player? I'm like, not really. I mean, I play volleyball here and there, but I'm not a volleyball player. But if I play volleyball 3 days a week for a year and you ask me, are you a volleyball player? I'm like, yeah, I'm a volleyball player, man. Right?
Call me Spike.
Call me Spike, bro. But it's because I cast so many votes for that identity that's who I believe I am, right? And so it's a two-way street. Your mind and physical actions, like I think physical actions always win, right? They create more neural circuitry than anything else. Even though if like we visualize and we have affirmations and we ask ourselves the right questions, I think that's crucial. I think it's key. But nothing will change you more than the actions change you. And so that whole analogy of self-esteem is very, very critical because, like how do you do the stuff that builds the credits? And when you do that, like you'll believe that you're that person, right? I gotta pull up number 7 is actually like a number of different things. These are like the almost like some other things that those people did, right? And a lot of them are connected to nutrition. I'll go through them a little bit faster, but I think we can kind of come back to some of them. Eating lower calorie foods, eating higher protein, consuming higher fiber. This one I think is really important, is flexible versus rigid rules. And we kind of talked about that earlier, right? Like if you have very rigid, like I gotta hit this number of calories,
it's that analogy you use of the tightrope versus the
boundaries of the
boundaries.
basketball court.
I love that, man. I love that.
And that rigid never works long term, never. And it doesn't create autonomy, right? Like if you're a person that doesn't get to a point where you go, all right, listen, you got to eat this lean ground beef. They don't have lean ground beef, but I know that there's all these other lean proteins that I like. Just pick that one, right? Helping people make those choices and decisions is basically the flexible versus rigid. So that was a big one. Another big one is like not snacking and grazing. So people that snack don't do very well when it comes to changing their body, right? And here's the actual stat that was most people when they snack, they eat between 500 to 700 calories a day. That if I ask them, I say, hey, listen, tell me more about what you eat. They tell me the main meals, but it's almost like forgetting that they snack, and you're squeezing in like 500 to 700 calories, which adds up to a lot, right? So one of the huge successes that we've had when we coach people on the nutrition side is just cutting or eliminating snacks, right? Every single time success goes like this, right? And what's great is that once people get that, I would say, unconscious competence, right? Or should I say they start realizing, so the conscious competence part of it, they go like, man, like I just realized how much I was snacking. It's just automatic, right? And that's another part of it, was not eating, like people that did well was, I would say, practicing to not eat with stress and emotions. And you may have heard this, it's used in cognitive behavior therapy. It's called HALT, the HALT strategy. So it goes not in just nutrition, but also with anxiety, okay? And it means, the acronym is, are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, right? HALT. And most of the time what you'll recognize is that you're not eating because you're hungry. It's like you're bored. I don't got anything to do. I'm fidgeting. Oh, food, right? Or like, man, somebody really upset me. So what do? Like we want to be comforted, and food comforts us, especially, sugary food or food that has some type of memory connection to love. Grandma made me this, right? My mom gave me this when I fell and hurt myself. So if we can kind of break that pattern and go like, you know what? I'm not really hungry. I ate an hour ago. Doesn't make sense, right? Like what happened? This coworker, like made me mad. You know what I mean? Peanut butter M&Ms in a cafeteria. Boom, I'm snacking on them, right? So people that were able to work on that did really, really well. Not staying up too late. I know you'll love this one, but it's like the sleep part is massive, because if you sleep less, you're more stressed out, you have more time to eat. And this now there's been a huge correlation between that lack of sleep and eating more.
Yeah. Increased like 600 more calories consumed.
And so now, like, think about just two of the things that we mentioned in this part: snacking and eating more because you have a lack of sleep or quality of sleep. Right. So now you start looking at like that and going like, how, if you can just improve that by 50%, you're cutting down 600, 700, 800 calories per day. Right. I mean, that's over the course of a year, dramatic results. Right. And so this is the thing that I want to kind of put out there is like, it's these small bricks to stack up and build a really solid building over time. Right. And that the last one is high emotional intelligence and mindfulness and shining a light on your wins. So I would say working on, the more empathetic that you are and mindful that you are in life, I think it helps with just about anything, right? You want to be successful in business, being more empathetic and mindful will help you. Building better relationships, it'll help you. When it comes to obviously behaviors and nutrition, it will help you. But also being that with yourself, right? Empathy, not beating yourself up because, man, I've went on 7 diets and I failed. Like, I suck. I can't do this. Right? Empathy is like, hey, you know what? You're coming back for the 8th time. You know what you are? You're resilient. Man, like you got a lot of fire in you. That's the way I look at stuff. Like, I can tell you all the stuff that you're not, but man, here's all these positive properties that I see in you, right? And mindfulness is like just being able to stop and be aware of things. Like I said, whether it's behaviors, food, how we treat people, all those different things, right? And the whole wins, I think there's been a common theme throughout this conversation, which is how do you constantly shine a light on wins? Because we know it works, right? That doesn't mean that like we don't challenge ourselves, we don't challenge each other, that, that, like I said, that there's no push. But the reason, people build these identities that they can't do things is because they keep repeating that to themselves. Or listening to somebody, or going on social media and going like, man, like, I'm not that lean, I'm not that strong, I don't have enough money, I should be, that magical word I always say, like, don't should all over yourself, right? Like, I should be here, I should be there, reality is you're here. But the great thing is that wherever you want to go, you can go there, you can change that. So that last one was more wrapped into the 7, but I do feel that it's a good shining light on, if you do those things, like, you'll be amongst the 5%. And look at it like, whatever today's data is, like, look at the long term, look at next year, like, who do I want to become? And if you remember, even if you're 40-50% compliant with your actions, like, you'll have really good success.
Right. 40 to 50% compliant in these, and also they feed into each other, of course. Absolutely. Massively. I love that you mentioned this tendency towards stress eating, and we've seen this skyrocket. We were talking about this before the show, and the amount of weight that folks have gained during COVID.
Crazy.
Talk about that a little bit.
So,
and the snowball effect.
Yes. I was blown away. I had to kind of keep checking the stat because I was like, nah, somebody's throwing that out there to trigger people. You know what I mean? Like, but it was, I think, 42% of Americans gained an average of 29 pounds. And I think millennials was 41. Okay. Which means almost half, right? Almost half. Now, if you sit there and stop and think about that, that's an incredibly crazy statistic, right? Now, we know that before pre-COVID that, the health of this country was at a decline. It was not good whatsoever. But the analogy that we talked about earlier was that, like, it's like a snowball. If you've ever, I come from Slovenia. It's like in this winter, there's a lot of snow. You'd make these snowballs and you go on a big hill when it was like still fresh powdered snow, and you'd roll the snowball and just keep picking up more snow, and it get bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, it would like become a big, big snowball. We were, I feel like, already snowballing in a negative direction. I think nobody can argue with that. If you look at the statistics of where I think we're at 42% obesity pre-pandemic. And, adding on to this stat, like during the pandemic, that big snowball, like somebody came and it pushed it even faster. It's almost like the decline in a year and a half is equal to, I can't remember, but I was looking up statistics, like 6, 7, 8 years. It's almost like, we 4 or 5x'd the negative decline of health in this country because of it. And so you have to like ask yourself, how do you start shifting that? Now, it can be such a big task that like, me personally, when you start thinking about changing systems and policies and things of that nature, I mean, it can become overwhelming to even think about, right? Because it's like many of the systems are broken, right? So personally for me, I look at it like this. I influence, 1, myself, 2, my family and friends, and then my community. And things start from the inside out. And I think that's how you take back power and control. It's like, I'm responsible for my own life, and here's the people that I can influence. And again, the analogy of the lighthouse, I always think about that. Lighthouses do 2 things. They guide people away from danger, they guide them to safety, and they shine no matter what. Storm, the whole worst weather, no matter what, right? A tugboat on the other side tries to go out and, I would say, save everybody and people, and tends to a lot of times drown with the person, right? So being a lighthouse to me means, living in congruence with my values, who I want to become, and then affecting all those people around me. Now, because if I do it right, what's going to happen is another person is going to become a lighthouse, and another one, and another one, and another one, in their families, at their work, in their communities. And we create these ripples that create waves. And the thing is, I can control that, right? So you can control you can affect the people in your circles a lot. But if you start going like, well, here's this politician that didn't put this into place. Here's this medical system that's not working. And like, there are people working on that, affecting that. Like, I think, you're doing so much in that, spreading that word, and educating. It's phenomenal. Every person that has to take that, and they have to go and become the lighthouse. Now, if we do that, right, it starts steamrolling, and it becomes that snowball, but it becomes a snowball that goes in the direction that we want it to go. And I feel like that's, how we change things, because like, somebody got to stop this snowball, man. Like, we got to stop it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We got a bunch of massive Frosty the Snowman out here
man.
Getting built, So what are some of the trends, especially with you having such an incredible gym and culture and just being a leader in fitness? What are some of the trends / changes that you've seen in training tactics and culture since COVID has arrived on the scene? Like, what are some of the changes that you've seen take place?
So one of the things I think there's been a trend in the last years is recovery. And so, when we talked about the stresses, right? More so than ever, like, we have to learn how to manage stress. I think that there hasn't been enough education around, like, even for instance, cardio. How, like, most people put cardio in one bucket. Hey, do you do your cardio? Yeah, man, I do. What type of cardio do you do? What do you mean? Right? It's like there's different forms of cardio. And cardio can be an incredible form of de-stressing, right? Meaning, if you do aerobic exercise, which is the lighter, sweating 130 to 150 beats per minute, nothing crazy, that is an incredible recovery workout after a hard session, and it can put you in a parasympathetic state, right? Meaning, that's your rest and digest. Because we do, life is inherently very stressful. Let's look at the last 2 years. I mean, uncertainty creates anxiety, creates stress, right? And right now, still, there's so much uncertainty. What's going to happen if you have a business, if you have a job, the economy, right? It's so uncertain. And sometimes then what do? We try to, I would say, use exercise as a mental health kind of like tool, which it is, right? But then you got to be careful, because, okay, I go in and I crush a workout 7 days a week, and that helps me, with my kind of like getting my mental focus right, and kind of putting these emotions into a space that I can exert them in a positive way. But we may be sometimes doing more harm than good, right? Because all of a sudden, that allostatic, load that we talked about is too much. Boom, now you got inflammation, your back gets blown out, can't sleep, and you're like, I don't know, I'm exercising, right? So recovery is really finding the puzzle pieces, I think. And this is going to continue to be something that we're going to have to really look into and piece this puzzle piece together. Here's how we're training here. And then we're also, yes, this is exercise, but it's recovery based. We're doing mobility circuits, and, we're doing aerobic capacity work. And we're doing infrared saunas and cold plunge pools in certain scenarios, and so on and so forth, right? Like, and we're doing IVs when necessary.
Yeah, I've seen more people doing those things recently, like
Yes.
utilizing sauna, cold therapy. So in the gym, for example, because this is a good connection here, is the culture. I know you've seen shift where not as many people were at the gym. So what were folks doing? I mean, did people just did you notice people picking stuff up and trying to do stuff at home? Were people trying to segregate themselves at the gym? Like,
So
what did you see change?
That's a great question, because that's been a conversation. For me, I'm in a fitness space. I own gyms, and I coach coaches and gym owners. So it's, getting hundreds of pieces of feedback. So one of the things I found is that bigger gyms, okay, are struggling and struggled. I would say maybe the most, and still will be, for some reasons. There's not as much culture. So if you come to my gym, it's a belief system, right? It's more tight knit. There's less members. We're all kind of on the same boat. I mean, we legitimately have, these values that are everywhere, and these quotes that are everywhere. And there's a way that we train, and then there's a way that we believe in, like how we live our lifestyle as well, right? So there's the whole culture and community around it. We do combined work in the community, do philanthropic work, and so on and so forth. With I would say bigger gyms, there's less of that. So there's less of I'm not only going to exercise and follow this belief system that I have, but I'm going to go see my friends, my people, right? There is like you went and rented equipment. So more people set up home gyms than ever and started exercising at home, which I think obviously is, that number is gonna stay, because they found that online. There's great communities online where, whether it's Facebook groups, it's apps, they can communicate with each other and still follow some type of structured program that we talked about earlier, right? But what's also happening, and this is somewhat, statistical and anecdotal, is that when we get people back and they go like, it's not the same. Right. One of the things that I heard right off the bat was like, "Oh, this is the end of gyms," and I was the first person to be like, "No," because that would mean that it's the end of community. That would mean it's the end of culture. It would mean that it's the end of social gathering and connection, right? And it's like that's never going to happen. And so what we're seeing is that the tightest communities that are more than just, hey, this is how we exercise, right, are continuing to go strong, and a lot of times growing, right? And when that wasn't in place, it's more challenging for them, right? And I think that this will continue as we move forward, right? That it's like, I'm a big believer. 5-6 years ago, the thing that I was saying, that if you're a coach and the only thing that you understand is exercise, but you don't have nutritional knowledge and guidance, right, and you're able to nutritionally guide clients, you're going to become a relic. And I think now I will say that when you look at the next 4 to 5 years, if you're not, really good at understanding habits and behavior change and how these puzzle pieces fit together, is going to be increasingly more challenging, because it's all symbiotic, right? How your personal life and emotions and stress affect your training affects, everything is interconnected. And so the future, I believe that the companies and businesses that understand that, and also understand people, environment, social sciences, right? Like will do best, because it's just such a bigger picture than like how many reps are we doing, even the template that I was talking about. I'm a geeky person. Like I study training left and right all the time. But, about 8-9 years ago, like I dove into change psychology and habits and behavior change, social science, environments, understanding, neurology, what makes people tick, because all the X's and O's are irrelevant if we can't help people at the, baseline level change behaviors, right? Yeah. And you could go online and in 2 weeks kind of find out some foundational things about nutrition, to where it's like, okay, if I do these X's and O's, if I do that, I'll be good. But yet we still have the most declining, health in the history of the U.S. Right?
It's nuts. Yeah, man, it's so many good insights. I think that especially with your data set, you being able to see this culture, to study things, and this is what really separates you in my mind, is that I know clearly and I see clearly you've studied psychology and behavior change, and you're looking at the thing that really motivates and creates the action outside, and we tend to get so focused on the external thing. And one of my biggest takeaways from today, and this is a game changer. If we really get this, when you gave this analogy of the tightrope and the boundaries, that in of itself, because we as a culture today, we tend to have this all or nothing mentality with stuff. And if we're creating this tightrope, and I love it, you brought it back to in the training analogy and then brought it to the nutrition domain, it's so easy to fall off. You've got a tightrope. Your likelihood of quote falling off is so great. And what happens when you fall off, like that's it, versus having boundaries where you create. And I think, let me circle back to the Will Smith thing. He was walking a tightrope if he's just looking at pound a week.
Yep.
Versus like, let's create some strategic boundaries that we're operating in here, where there's going to be a myriad of success. But at the same time, if we are, let's use the stressful eating as an example. What's crazy is that I've seen there's two templates usually. Some people tend to lose their appetite when they're excessively stressed. And
this guy right here.
Me as well. Whereas my wife, she'll eat in your face. If there's an argument taking place, which we don't, we're man, I mean, I love our relationship. But at times, like, she can literally just start chowing down, where I'm just like, how could you eat right now? And so, but what's found in the data is that it's actually the best time for you. And what happens when you're stressed, we tend to make poorer food choices. And that can be that opening to where I've fallen off this tightrope versus I operated in this boundary. I had this poor decision that I made now, but it's all good. I'm still within my boundary. But this is when we tend to make poorer food choices as well, is when we're stressed. The best time to actually eat said pizza or ice cream or whatever the case might be is when you're actually healthy, when you're feeling good, when you're not stressed. Your body, the management of these inputs is greatly improved when you feel good versus everything becoming constricted, inflammatory. It can really gum the system up more. Now, I'm not advocating for people to go to Burger King, when they're happy, but it's just one of these things that it just happens in our environment. We don't realize that when we're walking this tightrope, stress hits, chances are you're going to fall off, and it's much more difficult to get back on that tightrope.
There's two things I wanted to kind of throw in there, because what you want to do is, for instance, if you make a choice of, hey, listen, let's have pizza on Friday night, but I'm calm, it's strategic. Like, man, I've been on point the whole week. My behavior's been matching my goals. It's actually part of the plan. We have pizza Saturday nights, right?
Because you got those boundaries.
You got boundaries, and you're making a decision out of power, not scarcity, not fear, not stress, right? So it's like, where are your decisions coming from? Is it stress, scarcity, fear, all these negative emotions, or is it from consciously, right? And number two, as you said, all or nothing, right? And I always, when somebody says all or nothing, I say, always something, right? So all or nothing is, I couldn't get my hour and 20-minute workout in the way it was structured. Nothing. But always something is, like yesterday, right? Like I'm like, man, I'm coaching a pro rugby team. Then I got to coach this. I got to make a call. I got like 30 minutes before I got to head home and jump on a flight, right? Now, my training session usually is an hour and a half. There's no way that's going to happen. What I do, I actually went home in my living room, did a 30-minute body weight session, got a sweat going, jetted out. But it's like, but the thing is, that was always something. And imagine a dial. So in exercise and in nutrition, imagine a 10 on the dial is like the perfect optimal thing that you planned. The workout, you did it great. You weren't tired. You smashed it, right? 0 is nothing. 0, you didn't do anything. But an 8 is, hey, I got 3/4 of the workout done, still really hard, but I only had so much time. You know, a 5 or 6 is like, man, I couldn't go to the gym, but still got to work out in with a couple of dumbbells and body weight. A 3 is like, I went for a 40-minute walk, but I'm just turning the dial, you know, from 10 to 1. And it's like all or nothing is like a 10 or a 0. That's not going to work. In nutrition, it's the same thing. My dial at 10 is like, this is the most optimal meal I could have locked in my plan to get to where I want to go. A 7 is like, man, like I went to this restaurant. They didn't have the things that I really wanted. So, you know, I had to go with some, you know, some extra carbs, but that wasn't planning on, for instance, right? You turn it down and it's like, damn, or I only, you know, instead of having the donut and the coffee, maybe I have, you know, I would say the coffee with just some 0 calorie, I would say almond milk or something else, right? Like, it's like you look at that dial and you go, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Just think always something, because it comes back to that stat that we said, only 40 to 50% compliance will get you pretty damn good results across the year. In your mind, when you're about to go like, all or nothing, I can't do all, so I'm gonna do nothing, just tell yourself that phrase, always something, and turn the dial. And I promise you, like, when you do, and you could do that in any part of your life, right? You'll have so much more success if you do that.
So good, man. I got to ask you about one more thing, because, you know, you're the guy just to ask things like this. Anaerobic threshold. Why does that matter? Why does being aware of our anaerobic threshold, what is it, and what can we do to improve it?
So when it comes to cardio, this is a great question, because I love talking about cardio and stuff. People put it in the same bucket, right? So anaerobic threshold is, everybody reaches their anaerobic threshold at a certain point of heart rate, okay? Now, the only true way to measure it, okay, the only true way to measure it is to basically do a gas exchange test in the lab, which most of us aren't going to do. But a very simple way, and it's pretty on point, is to do, for instance, like a 12-minute test. You could do it for running. If running is beating you up, you could do it on an airdyne bike. You could do it somewhere. And basically what you're trying to do is, in those 12 minutes, push as hard as you can, right? Try to keep it steady, okay? Now, you got to wear a heart rate monitor for it. And what's going to happen is that you're going to have a specific heart rate average across those 12 minutes. Plus minus about 5 beats per minute is your anaerobic threshold. Now, if you think about, because then that gives you some data to train it, okay? After you're done with that 12 minutes, I also really like to do what's called a 60-second heart rate recovery test. And it tells you how much does your heart rate drop in 60 seconds. It's a really big marker of your cardio and fitness levels. You know, going back to tracking progress, these are great. Like, most people don't know how to track progress of cardio. So we do all these different tests on how to do it. So then you have something to train it, because most of your training for anaerobic threshold is going to be in those plus minus 5 beats per minute around your anaerobic threshold. So let's say yours was 171, right? That means we train between 166 and 176, right? 177-ish, right? I'd want you to stay there for instance, like 3 minutes at a time, right? If we were doing some type of shuttle sprints or airdyne bikes or whatever else. Now, what it does is it will basically raise your anaerobic threshold. So imagine that, like, when you go past your anaerobic threshold, you start using glycogen for energy.
You start to go to the aerobic side.
You go to the anaerobic glycolytic side. So you're using the sugars, but you only have so much time to do that, right? That's, for instance, I'll give an analogy of a fighter.
Yeah.
So a fighter, once they, if they were bigger, more muscular, and they're swinging and they're killing it, and you've seen them like gas out, right? This is a great, I would say, analogy of like, man, he was throwing those punches so hard. He came in round 2 and it looked like he could barely throw, right? Because his anaerobic threshold was pretty low. And then after that, he fell down into an aerobic zone and he just didn't have a lot of aerobic power, right? So if we can raise that, it means that we can be more powerful. The anaerobic threshold is higher and we can be more powerful in aerobic zone. Great example, a friend of mine, Demetrius Johnson, Mighty Mouse, right? One of the most winningest fighters in UFC history. You've ever seen him fight in the 5th round? You're like, this guy's throwing like he's in the first round, right? He's one of the most conditioned fighters. My friend Joel actually created his conditioning programs for a decade plus because he trained those systems so he can throw really powerfully, but his heart rate's still pretty low. Now that's trained, right? So how can this, for athletes, this is crucial if you play a sport where, for instance, any type of fighting, boxing, MMA, but a lot of team sports, basketball, football doesn't need it as much because it's more short and explosive bursts with longer breaks. But most team soccer, you need anaerobic threshold work, right? But if you're in, for instance, if you're like, oh, how does this relate to me if I'm just a person that's, like trying to exercise? I mean, but it's like, okay, do you want to go on a hike? Do you play any type of basketball, like weekend warrior type stuff? What about, ultimate frisbee? Whatever it may be, majority of things, you got to work on that because otherwise you get like smoked really fast. And what it does too is like your form breaks down, right? So looking at these pockets of cardio is really important. That's why even in that template I say, hey, once a week do, aerobic based work, which is just steadier state, nothing really super intense. But once a week, really get that heart rate up. That could be your anaerobic threshold work, right? Yeah. Get your heart rate up, keep it there for a while, then let it come all the way back down, repeat, right? I mean, that's the super basic part of it. But understanding that there's different energy systems with a lot of my NFL guys, I think a lot of the pro sports stuff has been very outdated. In Major League Baseball, they have like a 1 mile run test. And I trained some, the top baseball players on the planet, Cy Young Award winners. They're like, Luka, should I train for this? I'm like, no. What in baseball? When do you need that? You don't. It's just been around for so long.
Never,
right? But football is 5 to 8 seconds of extremely explosive, violent play, followed by about 35 seconds to 50 seconds of rest, right? That's called anaerobic lactic. It's very fast, very explosive, and then you have a pretty good break. So I'm going to help those guys do two things. Aerobic base, everybody needs that. And then anaerobic lactic, right? It's the best use of time, and it's going to transfer well to the sport. So even with, clients that come in and say, hey, I want to be more fit. Remember that question. Like, to me, it's like, what does that look like? Tell me about what that looks like. Man, I want to go on a 8-mile hike and push it. Here's the cardio energy systems you'll need. We'll work on that. We get firefighters. I got to pass this CPAT test. Okay, what does it include? Well, I got to drag this dummy. I got to do this, and then I got to do a stepper with a weight vest and this much on. Okay, right? And we kind of look at that, and then we program in a way that helps those people achieve those specific goals. And rather than, just like, I just want to improve my cardio. Like, you want to ask more specific things, right? And that's why making progress, and even going back to that Will Smith, conversation, I would have got really specific. What does that mean to you? What does progress look like? What would, and you get granular, and then you build that in so that the behaviors like create those buoys along the way. Like, oh, we're on track. And then they can feel good about it too, because it's not just weight. It's not just this. It's not just that. I got a whole list of things that with clients, we'll go, at the end of the month, it's like, trap bar deadlifts up this much. You're throwing this much harder. Look at your conditioning levels, right? And you're showing them stuff. And they're feeling great. I'm winning, right? And maybe one of the things isn't there yet. Like, oh, I hope to lose 5 pounds, but I'm down 3. But what I've found is that when people focus on performance, it improves their body composition. When people focus on the behaviors, it improves their body composition. It's the greatest win of all time, right? Because they keep improving and getting better, and everything else kind of aligns along the road with it.
Yeah, perfect, man. Perfect. Yes, when you focus on health, the body composition comes along with it.
100%.
So, man, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insights. Can you let everybody know where they can follow you, get more information, and also, can people come by and check you out? Come by the gym.
Listen, all you got to do is let me know. Vigor Ground is open for anybody and everybody. We actually, now we get a lot of people from out of state, and they fly in, the countries, go train, hang out. We'll do, mini workshops and stuff like that. But I share a lot of that. It's almost like the hub is Instagram. That's at Luka Hocevar, LukaHocevar. Say that real fast, you get $50. Then the gym is vigorgroundfitness.com is the gym website. I also help a lot of coaches actually build their businesses, and that's yogrowyourgym.com, which you'll appreciate this. It's a similar logo to Yo MTV Raps, so that the old schoolness. And on YouTube, actually, a lot of the stuff too that we just talked about, I put a lot of content that's, for instance, how to do threshold training, cardio, workouts, muscle building, like everything around fitness and nutrition. All of my seminars that I've recorded, there's like 1,400 videos. You can check that out on YouTube, and that's the same thing. Just put in Luka Hocevar, and that'll pop up.
Hey, if you like this video, make sure to check out this video right here.
That's my happy time, my me time. It puts me in the right mood for the day. It doesn't require a lot. It's 30 minutes. And having that plan, having a program to follow that gives you a little bit of structure, I feel like that makes us feel empowered again. When you take even the tiniest little bit of control back,